I'm thinking of the one that really hits for me is when Liquid Ocelot, i.e., Ocelot, who is seemingly being possessed by the severed arm of Liquid Snake, the villain from Metal Gear Solid 1, uh, tries to shoot Fortune with like 200 missiles. And even though she no longer has her protective shield that has made her seemingly unkillable and lucky, because she believes that she's cursed with luck, which is itself absurd and very funny because bullets are clearly changing their trajectory when they approach her,
Yeah.
but she keeps everybody understands it as she's just very lucky, you know. It turns out she has this special technology that has been added, sort of equipped to her unbeknownst to her, in the way that we might equip a C4 to an enemy without them realizing it.
Mm.
Um, and even though that has been deactivated and she's been shot with a mortal wound, she still manages to deflect all of the missiles with her magic powers.
Yeah.
Um, that moment is, I mean, it's another generic violation. Like there's no it's excessive in that even the most radical uh, um, departures from realism, from generic realism in Metal Gear can be explained by science magic. So we'll learn that Vamp in Metal Gear Solid 4, which is the proper sequel to Metal Gear Solid 2, has all of these nanomachines, these tiny little, right, bits of tech in his body that are juicing all his capabilities, which allow him theoretically to do all this crazy stuff and to never die.
Hmm.
Um, but this is one case where there's simply no explanation, where fortune just turns out to be magic, and that moment, I replayed the game this past fall, and it really hit for me. When I was a kid, I thought it was so disappointing. I was like, okay, well, oh, so we're just gonna let magic in, and that's gonna be a big plot point. Is like, oh, it turns out that magic's real. But it's fascinating because even on a theoretical level, like, I suppose you could say luck is a form of magic. So it's like a luck is a naturalized form of magic, or quote unquote realistic form of magic, such that whereas Vamp runs on water. And there's no way to explain that other than magic, which could then be justified as his reflexes, whatever. He has some crazy technology in his body. I mean, that still seems ridiculous, but that's at least what the game would say. Um, for Fortune, the only explanation is, oh, actually, she was lucky. Like, actually, the missiles just missed. And in a way, that's an ironclad argument. Like, you could just say, yeah, I guess that's right, but it purifies that undecidability or that indeterminacy between magic and reality, in a way that's like a kind of it's like the game asymptotically approaches magic, but still leaves that little sliver, and the little sliver that allows for magic to exist is luck.
Yeah, or chance,
Or
right?
chance,
And
exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean maybe again this is another point that I don't want to say too much about, but I think chance is also pretty explicitly foregrounded in the third game where with Ocelot, right? He's always like flipping his revolvers around and doing sort of Russian roulette style challenges with people, right? In a really theatrical way. But obviously that's also a way of activating or reminding us of this, this idea of chance, which again, we're reminded at the same time that we're playing something that not only materially was created in an intentional way and was written, of course, but also concerns these kind of deep state plots or whatever, right? Like these really intricate chessboard style, 3D or 4D or however many D chess is going on in the game in terms of like forcing people to make certain decisions by guiding them with an invisible hand, right? I mean, that's really what is kind of revealed at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3 that again, we don't have to get into it, but so at the same time we have both things. And again, this is the Borges point, right? We have chance, but we also have fate or destiny or something like that. Um, and both things are true at the same time all the time, and this is what is really I think a paradox and is kind of impossible to really capture, but is the thing that's operative and is maybe the thing that makes us feel a certain way when we're playing these games, right? Or reading those texts that have that happening. And it also cuts across genre. I mean, this is the really beautiful thing about, again, a text like Garden of Forking Paths, which seems like a kind of wartime spy thriller, but is something else entirely. And I would say something similar is going on with Metal Gear. I think it's more interesting to think about it in these terms than it is to say, ooh, it's a postmodern game that's, a pastiche and whatever kind of, terms we want to use for what it's doing with pop culture and stuff like that. Because I just think we have a million of those that don't really do anything interesting and to say that about the game would be to kind of do it a disservice, I think.
Totally agree, and I'm just in love with what you just said. So I want to speak a little bit more to Chance, but I just want to quickly flag, th this point about it's a postmodern game, right? Or it's subversive and it's ironic. Actually, it's not. Like I called it ironic earlier, but I meant that in a formal sense, not in a tonal sense, because Metal Gear is nothing if not sincere. It's an incredibly sincere series. This is how Kojima writes as an artist. He's like an incredibly sincere and like emotional guy, and really wants to tackle these big themes with it's almost so sincere that it becomes postmodern or ironic because it gets so goofy. And it's like, how can this guy be so serious about something so goofy? Like a character named Die Hardman in Death Stranding, but he is like, no, Die Hardman he's a very emotional character, Uh, so that's all true, and it goes back to the melodrama point. But I wanted to circle back to what you said about chance because I just think that's totally brilliant. Like, you're so right that one of the so again, stepping back, I framed the fortune moment as a melodramatic moment, and by that I just meant like it's kind of like when in the sports movie when like the kid like scores a touchdown and everybody is like he did it, I can't believe he actually did it. Like that's what I meant. Like it hits me on that basic melodramatic level, but. I think we're kind of uncovering the fact that this is actually an incredibly important sort of a theoretically and formally exceptional moment. And it's for what you just said because this is a series that is so interested in chance, you know. Partly, again, as you said, because it's Byzantine plots of double crossings and simulations, right? Basically don't allow for chance. Like the idea that you would send a random gamer into who turns out to be a child soldier or whatever, but that they didn't know that. Yeah, so they're sending or I guess they did, but it's not as relevant to the scenario building. If you're sending a random gamer into a terrorist situation in which he's being shot at, right? Um, and making him relive certain experiences from another historical crisis, which is the Shadow Moses incident from Metal Gear Solid 1, including the ninja, including the bosses, right? That allows for no chance whatsoever. It's like the entire game is premised on the fact that on the or that the entire section of let me uh, re find the right words here. The That section of the game's entire plot is premised on the idea that uh, this random guy could survive and progress through all of these escalating challenges without failing, without slipping on bird shit and falling into the ocean, without getting seen and shot. I mean, you die a lot in Metal Gear in my experience. Um, and so it really does it's pretty ridiculous. Like you have to, if you wanted to take a quote unquote realistic lens to the story, it's like what entity would I understand that they're testing the theory that Raiden might survive, but to some extent it seems like everybody knows he's going to survive or expects him to survive in order for other parts of the plan to come into effect. Um, so there's often these cases where an agent, Snake, Raiden, is being manipulated by unseen forces. And those forces want Snake to do exactly what he does, right? Or want Raiden to do exactly what he does. And yet what he does is so astronomically improbable that it seems only the most insane person would build a plot around it. It would be like if you were a conspiracy that's like, we need Brian to win the lottery. but we don't actually control the lottery. But our plan is going to work great when Brian wins the lottery, you know? Um, and so that part is ridiculous, right? And that it kind of crystallizes and intensifies the basic lack of chance in narrative constructions. That, of course, narrative constructions are predetermined and they have no chance insofar as everything is set out and advanced by the author or by the creators. But also, right, at the limits of the game or in certain moments, we have extreme chance, right? We have Fortune, who, again, as we sort of talked about, is an embodiment of luck and turns out to be an embodiment of luck that supersedes the negation of chance, right, by the powers that be. The Patriots created her impossible luck by giving her this device, but when that device is turned off, she still has the luck. Um, Likewise, doesn't uh, Ocelot say in his big monologue where he's revealing the Solid Snake simulation, he says, the one thing that we didn't plan on, the only thing we didn't plan on was the appearance of the real Solid Snake. So that Solid Snake being on the big shell is itself the ultimate expression of chance. Even though it's not, because Solid Snake has to be on the big shell because this is Metal Gear Solid 2, you know. But it's a really interesting question, and there is something true in what Ocelot's saying, you know. After all, like their plan does fail because Snake was on the big shell.